Well, that was a hell of a round of Super Rugby Pacific, and I think that a lot of people can say that they definitely would have been hard pressed to get all their tipping points correct on the weekend's games because there were some seriously topsy turvy games, and we're going to get into all of them. We'll do some review. We'll do some review on all of them, and we're going to start off at the Waratahs game because I did the post match review there with my very good mate from Rugby Pass, Finn Morton, and we're going to throw to that right now.
So I'm here with Finn Morton from Rugby Pass, fellow colleague there, and we have just witnessed the Waratahs win against the Chiefs. I'm pretty speechless. They did it in pretty crazy circumstances, and just that defensive effort extremely impressive. And they've got to be some serious happy players as well as coaches in the Waratahs box. But I'll throw to you first, Finn. Your quick summation on the game.
I think I want to start by referencing the last time we did one of these videos, Fergo. I think you guys called me crazy, at least with your eyes, when I talked about Lawson Crichton as a Wallabies contender, and man, he looked like it tonight, didn't he? Steered the ship very well. The Tars looked settled, and Teddy Wilson as well, young halfback, and they look very comfortable together, and they wouldn't have won without Crichton playing the way he did. I put it that way. He certainly outplayed McKenzie, who, on the flip side from the Tars, had a night to forget. I think we're putting it that way, putting it generously. I haven't seen an All Black, like a frontline All Black superstar, probably play that poorly when he's expected to shine like that in quite some time.
It was regularly a shaky performance. There were drop balls, there were misplays, maybe a little bit of hesitancy on his part.
Yeah, mistakes across the board. But he'll be back. So will the Chiefs. And I think while this is a great result for the Tars, and it's their first win. I just tweeted it, something since 2016 or 2017 over the Chiefs. So it's been a long time coming, but the Chiefs, they'll be a lot better for this result. I think they still deserve to be competition favourites, and we'll go downstairs in a minute and chat to Dan McKellar, and I'm sure he'll say the same thing. But main takeaway, great for the Tars, great for Aussie rugby.
Absolutely, and I think that building on what you've said from the Tars perspective, if we just focus in on what the winning side did well, it's the first time that they've picked a side that's been dominated by players who've done the preseason. They're missing some Wallabies in some key positions, but you look at most of that back line, all but Joseph Akuso-Suali'i had the entire preseason together. So that's really impressive to see that the cohesion and the people that spent the time during the preseason drilling alongside the coaches really came through in the forward pack as well. You got Ethan Dobbins, you got Daniel Botha, you got the 2 second rowers, as well as all the back row except for Lungi Gleeson, all there. And Angus Bell in the front row. They were all part of that preseason drilling. So I spoke about cohesion being a big factor in their ability to put out a better performance and a stronger performance, and that's what they did. So I think that you got to tip your hat to the boys that really dug deep. You've got Andrew Kellaway there on the wing as well. Sorry, I'll mention him as well. He's a Wallaby, obviously, but apart from that, it was mainly a dominated side as well as the bench from a side of non-Wallaby players.
I think the word you're looking for, Fergo, is underdogs, isn't it? These are the guys who weren't the Wallabies, not even the wider training squad, but again, this is a star-studded Waratahs squad that boasts a lot of Wallabies, but yet, like you said, it's these guys who aren't in the national squad who are stepping up and really are, really showing off in a good way in itself. I thought Tristan Riley on the left wing, he's been sensational for a few weeks now. Obviously, Joel goes out injured, Darby Lancaster as well, but Tristan Riley, he's really knocking at the door for, I'm not going to say Wallaby selection, but when you look at that Indigenous and Pasifika 15, that First Nations Pasifika 15, that's going to take on the British Irish Lions at Melbourne's Marvel Stadium. I think he has to be there. Do you look at him potentially for the AUNZ 15? I won't go there, but I think players like that, they're really stepping up, and that's what it takes to win big games in Super Rugby, key games in Super Rugby. And the Waratahs, they've just beaten the ladder leaders, who, just off the top of my dome, I think have only lost one game so far this season. That was against the Drua in Lautoka. You don't just do that. That's not easy. They dominated them up front for a majority of that match. The Chiefs, to be fair, regained control of the set-piece battle towards the end of the fixture, but for the majority of this match, the Waratahs were in control up front, and the backs reaped the rewards. Joseph Akuso-Suali'i, his try was a beautiful, beautiful try, reminiscent of his league days, and maybe a sign of things to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you've just touched on there, Joseph Akuso-Suali'i, that superstar power that the Waratahs really needed at a time when things perhaps weren't breaking necessarily open. They weren't playing badly, but it was something that he proved and pulled out of the back pocket, the things that he needs to do when he is on the big money and he's got such a big profile. And then I just want to circle back to the Tristan Riley comment. When you start looking, you're saying he's not necessarily part of the Wallabies conversation, and I'd say that one or two injuries to someone like Dangunu and someone like Dylan Peach, who is the same type of player, physical, abrasive, can be decent at the breakdown, you start looking at, well, what's the balance that you need in the Wallaby back three, should there be a couple of injuries to those wider players. But all in all, an extremely impressive game, and Dan McKellar is going to extremely buoyed us, so we're going to head down and hear what he has to say. But thank you so much, and congratulations to all the Waratahs supporters out there.
Overwhelming emotion, is it relief or?
Yeah, just not so much relief, incredibly proud. Like, you can't beat the Chiefs and be relieved. Yeah, just really proud.
You've just seen a little snippet there from the press conference of the Waratahs coach, Dan McKellar, and he was really, really happy with that performance. You could just tell. I'm just standing here when they're packing up the field. The posts have come down on that end, setting up for the A-League tomorrow, and I'm just standing in front of the coach's box here. And again, I mean, from the words from McKellar, he's obviously really, really happy with that performance. Good. He commented, big comment on cohesion there, which the side has really built nicely, and the trust that they have in the wider squad. And also just, he also commented on the fact that he really appreciated the ways the boys dug in for each other and that they showed the grit and the fight. And the one thing that he challenged his side to do at halftime and also pre-game was to, what does the game and what does the win and what does the team really mean for you? And there was an awesome moment which Hugh Sinclair, the captain, also commented on, which was the New South Wales chant went up, and him being a New South Wales junior playing in the Shoot Shield and growing up watching these games, that is a hell of a moment for him as captain as well. So big congratulations to the Waratahs, and they go on to play Fiji in Fiji next week. Big match to back up, a lot of rotation needed. A lot of players probably looking up for a rest in the lead up to their bye the following week. So it was a good win, but they have some challenge. They have a challenge to. They have a mountain to climb before that. Winning away in Fiji is no easy job. So on to the next game.
So I know that the Waratahs game wasn't the first game of the weekend, but had to get it in first just because it was such a amazing score, and it was such an amazing result for the Waratahs, who had been really hard pressed. And I hope that you enjoyed the pieces there that I took from the game, and also getting you into the press box room and getting you up to the press box and chatting about Dan McKellar's words there, as well as some comments about the players themselves. But nevertheless, we'll head into the Hurricanes and Crusaders game now, and that was another really tough derby of a New Zealand classic standard. It was just really gritty. It was really good defense, and there was end-to-end skills shown from both sides. And I just think that overall, it really went to show that how well both of these teams can play and why both of them will be. If Crusaders will be there in the business end for sure, semi-finalists almost guaranteed to have a home semi-final. But the Hurricanes, they are coming for this competition, and they are starting to peak towards the right end of their season. But they just have to make sure that they start stringing some wins together. That's going to be really exciting because they go over and head and verse the Western Force next week, which will be a test for the Western Force, but also the Hurricanes after this loss, since they're going to have to travel such a long way. This game was far more entertaining than the Blues versus Hurricanes game last weekend. These were end-to-end stuff, great skills on show, and I think what it came down to is the Crusaders' just ability early to get that lead out, because it looked almost done and dusted early before the Hurricanes really made a push there after the second quarter and then into the third quarter. And it just goes to show really that this game and this season proves that you need to be on for 80 minutes. Again, Duplessis Karifi was massive. I thought Tahe Kemara, the number 10, had a really good game. But overall, I think the Crusaders were just able to get over that, be able to be disciplined in what they were doing, and then also be able to work the game into the right parts of their field and then execute, something which the Hurricanes struggled to do a little bit. It got a little bit topsy-turvy at times, and discipline cost them as well. And that means that they look like this on the table. You've got the Hurricanes in 8th, just a point behind the Highlanders with the same amount of loss-win ratio, but they've got a better points differential. And then you've got the Crusaders there moving into number 1, clear 1 point of the Chiefs. So great game from them, and they're going from strength to strength. Next, we'll go to the Blues versus Moana. I thought that Moana would have had this game, but again, Beauden Barrett proved the absolute trump card for the Blues. He commanded everything really well. That's not to say that the rest of the team played exceptionally well and better than they have in previous weeks. Captain Patrick Tuipulotu really rolled up his sleeves despite some issues around the tackle and getting a yellow card. Ricky Telly, Kurt Eklund, welcome back to him. Really good to have him back in the side. He looked really strong, as did the rest of the forward pack. They really went to work on the Moana side, which they managed to frustrate them. A lot of the calls Artie Sevilla, the Moana captain, was getting quite frustrated with, and he felt that there were a couple of moments when he got his knee to ground and he had to release, and that's what ended up in the Beauden Barrett try, which, as I said before, he came in clutch and trump card for them 2 weeks in a row. But that solo try is freaking awesome. And then because we discussed that poor form for Damien McKenzie in the Waratahs game, I'm not surprised that on the breakdown, the classic New Zealand podcast, vodcast, the breakdown on the Rugby Pod Aotearoa, I think there's going to be a lot of punter questions and a lot of zeitgeist chat about who should be the All Blacks number 10 moving forward into this season, because as we know, Damien McKenzie just re-signed and extended past 2027, or till 2027, or just past 2027. Anyways, he'll be there until the World Cup. And a performance like that, after you decide to re-sign with the All Blacks at NZR Rugby, is a little bit of a, for punters, we'll have them questioning, where is he best suited? Is it fullback? Is it impact player off the bench? Is it number 10? Where does Beauden Barrett fit in that equation? So that is really what gave fuel to the fire this weekend, in the fact that Beauden Barrett scored an awesome chip and chase solo try, and he had a really good commanding game when he got his players into the right parts of the field, and he did it through great variation. Pass, kick, run, opting when to kick long, opting when to kick short, little chips. He had the whole package, whereas Dave McKenzie, as we spoke about earlier, really struggled. So keep your eye on that conversation heading into the week. The Highlanders versus the Fiji, and Drua is the next game. The Fijians went to Dunedin, the deep south, and they got handed a bit of a hiding in the end. It was quite dominant from the Highlanders. From what I saw, I only watched the first half, and from what I saw of that, they were just able to consolidate momentum quite well, and that meant that it frustrated the Fijian Drua, and the Drua also weren't being flawless in their handling and their execution, and it showed up into the results at the very end. Like I said, I only saw the first half, but what I did see was that the strong defense from the Highlanders was extremely impressive, and that is something that they're really going to as their trump card this season, and it's something that they've been one of the best teams at, being dominant in defense, making sure they make their tackles, and also making sure that they do the work after the contact to be able to create a little bit of a chaos and a little bit of havoc around that ruck ball. And the halfback Simeone Kurivoli definitely didn't have his way at all as well. Neither did Armstrong Ravula, and I thought that Caleb Muntz kind of struggled at fullback, honestly. I think that the Fijian Drua are so much better when they have strike weapons across the back line, and then they just have one man who's running the cutter at number 10, and then he just needs to find space for them. So by sacrifice, I think Muntz is an extremely talented player. He's just not in the greatest form. And when you're in that situation, you've got a young, exciting star who's very confident in Isaiah Armstrong Ravula. You need to be able to give him strike weapons to play with, and that just wasn't what was happening for the Drua. They continue to struggle, and they go home now to play the Waratahs, who have just come off their win. And it's a bit of a conversation of the Waratahs having been playing quite terribly away from home. The Fijian Drua, we know, traditionally are strong at home, although I've struggled this year a little bit. It's going to be really a battle of the people who have struggled to do what they've needed to do this season. And for the Waratahs, it's an opportunity to consolidate their spot in the top 6. For the Drua, it's just about getting off the bottom at this point, unfortunately. And then the final game of the round, if you're an Aussie, was an absolute humdinger. That is right. The Reds hosted the ACT Brumbies, and the visitors, the men from the Bush Capital, came out on top. It was a great game of rugby if you're thinking of them the purely tactical and execution game plan perspective. It looked pretty good in very wet conditions. The pitch was soaked. Wasn't raining too much throughout the game, though, which was quite nice to see because it allowed a little bit of ball movement. But nonetheless, it really came down to which team could actually execute a wet ball or wet day game plan. And that was something that the Brumbies spoke about after the game. They had a game plan to play in the wet. That's what their game plan allows them to do. It's because they're very forward orientated. They keep it relatively tight and they only go wide when they know that they have the numbers, and it really paid off. But that wasn't until after about the 20-minute mark, because the Reds had the wood on them. They went 2 tries up early. Excuse me. The Reds were able to do that because they were finding space on the wings. And because the Brumbies employ a rush defense under Ben Moan, it was kind of hard to hit the rush hard enough to be able to cut off options in the wet and under. It was kind of loose underfoot. It just meant that they couldn't get that acceleration. They couldn't get that sting in their acceleration off the line. Therefore, the Reds were able to pick holes left and right, especially on the very flanks inside the 15-meter channel. Eventually, the Brumbies started cleaning that up and they started going more direct. But you have to look at who was getting the players into certain parts of the field. And it really became quite evident throughout the entire game that Ryan Lonergan of the Brumbies and Noah Lolesio had a much better halves pairing game than Tate McDermott and Tom Liner. Tom Liner had a lot of great stats. He beat a lot of defenders. He was doing some scurrying in and around. But it came down to the kicks, where they were kicking, how they were kicking, and when they were kicking. The Brumbies were exiting their territory very effectively, where the Reds had a kind of attack at all cost mentality, and it meant that they were running the ball from places that they probably could have afforded, especially in the conditions, to hoist a high ball or to drill a ball long. And occasionally it looked like they were just kicking for kicking's sake. Conversely, I think that the Reds had the wood on the Brumbies for a majority of the stats. Line breaks, defenders beaten. It was only by a little bit. It was very even. Statistically, the game was very even. But the Brumbies were able to control one dominant factor, and that was time in opposition 22. And although Lolesio was having a nightmare off the tee, I think that even if he was hitting them sweetly, and he hasn't been kicking great this season like he was last year, that's something that he really needs to fix up if he wants to be a genuine Wallaby starter for the Lions, because that series could hinge on a 40-meter penalty goal. He was hitting them sweetly last year, not hitting them so much now. But even if he was hitting them sweetly from 40 out, like Ryan Lonergan did at the end, to be able to really take it out, push the lead out, and potentially break the elastic there in that moment, the Brumbies were going to go to their line out because their efficiency scoring off a line out is the highest in the competition, and they are absolutely killing it. And the thing is that they do so well is that when things are working for them, when things are their strength, they're not going away from them. And they stuck to it, and they got pay out of it almost every time. And the penalties weren't in front of goal like some of the Reds were. And the Reds, again, under Tate McDermott, turned away and turned down easy 3 points when they were 14 points up. This is a time, if Les Kiss is going to be the Wallabies coach moving forward, he's really got to step in and say to his players and get a message to them, because you can now. You got the walkie-talkie, you got instant comms. You got to just say, Get your water boy on the sideline and tell him to go towards the post, because you got to trust your game leaders, but you also got to think that you're the coach and you got to teach them what's best, because you got a different view of the game and a different look at the momentum. In saying that, Brumbies, very well done, consolidated momentum, played well, played hard, played direct, and I think that just showed that the drilling and the physicality of the forward pack of the Brumbies won out over the genuine talent and X factor within the Reds pack. Although I did think Sururu and Lukan Salakaia-Loto in particular played extremely well. For another subsequent weekend, I thought Fraser McWright was kind of quiet, got one nice pilfer when the Brumbies were hot on attack, but apart from that, he really has not been able to exert himself in attack without his his right-hand man, his brother in Reds colours and in Wallaby colours, Harry Wilson. So really going to have to pick up some form there, because at the moment, Carlo Tizzano, he didn't even play this weekend, but I'm still going to mention him because he's on a red-hot form. He's on a tear. So Fraser McWright got to step up. Didn't play badly. I think he led the tackle count, but nonetheless, I really think that he needs to start adding something in attack when the team is down, because the Reds need him desperately. So another good weekend of rugby. Guys, if you get value from the channel, I would love it if I earned your subscription and a like, and I'll join you down in the comments and let me know what you thought about the round. I'm always eager to hear what you have to say. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend and enjoy the start of the week, and I'll see you on Wednesday, and maybe some special content this weekend. This week coming up. Definitely we'll have an interview lined up for tomorrow and another one on Friday when I put them out. We'll see. Nonetheless, hope you guys stick around, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday for the round preview.